A federal judge has made a ruling in regard to the rollback of DACA, which is, of course, the protection for certain immigrants who were brought into the country illegally when they were incredibly young. Now, the judge in this case stated that the Justice Department must actually justify the rollback of DACA in order to go through with it. Also, apparently the protections must stay in place and the government must resume accepting new applications. Now, the judge is Judge John D. Bates of the Federal District Court for the District of Columbia. And he says that the administration's decision to terminate the program was based on the virtually unexplained grounds that the program was unlawful. But one thing to keep in mind is that the judge's ruling will be stayed for 90 days to give the Justice Department an opportunity to make its case and explain why they felt that DACA was unlawful, an unlawful policy.
So this is the third court in several months to say that the program must continue. First one was in Brooklyn, the other one was in San Francisco. This is in DC. But the guy who made the decision here was nominated by George W. Bush. So he's a Republican and he's saying, look, I hear you, but it appears that your decision is what he called arbitrary and capricious, which is a legal standard, and you've not really given me any reason to rule on your behalf. So, and he's given them 90 days, come up with a reason, okay?
Right.
Which, by the way, shouldn't be that hard. Okay, maybe we can disagree on that.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit. So the argument that you hear from right-wingers who despise DACA and despise protections for these immigrants is that Obama did this through an executive order. And it's something that should have been done through Congress. Okay, that would be maybe a believable argument if Trump wasn't signing executive orders left and right when it comes to policy that should be decided by Congress. So I'll give you an example. Just recently, Trump signed an executive order in regard to the SNAP program, the food stamps program, indicating that in order for someone or a family to receive those benefits, they have to show that they're working at least 20 hours a week. Now, first of all, most of those recipients have children. 70% of those recipients have children. Also, if you are a single individual who's receiving that benefit, you only get that benefit for 3 months. After that, you have to prove that you are working and underpaid and you need that benefit. And so it's basically spreading this stereotype about food stamp recipients, and it's not gonna actually help people live better lives. If you wanna have a real conversation about why these people usually need these food stamps, let's have a discussion about underemployment, let's have a talk about stagnant wages, people who are working full time and still can't afford to put food on the table for their kids. I mean, we have 6 banks saving $3.1 billion in tax revenue in the first quarter of this year, and we're having a discussion about food stamps. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but nonetheless, that was done through an executive order. He's done a ton of things through executive orders that should have been decided through Congress. So I don't know what their argument's gonna be.
Yeah, well, look, I think the president gets to undo an executive order. And so they do have to come up with some explanation why, but he won. And so when Trump says the Democrats are the ones that are the reason why DACA's gone, that's 100% untrue. He's the one that rescinded Obama's executive order. Democrats want it back. Now, I don't think they fight nearly hard enough for it, and they kind of want it back, and they kind of want to protect the dreamers, but they certainly didn't want Trump to take it away. So Trump could put it back tomorrow. So he's an absolute liar on that, no question about it. And am I in favor of the dreamers thing? Of course, I think it's unconscionable what he's doing and using them as a pawn. And now he says, no, that's it. Even though he had said earlier, no, they're gonna be all right. I got a big heart, you're gonna be all right, okay?
Yeah, no, there's nothing big about him.
Yeah, it turns out, no, he's got, of course, as we knew, he has a dark heart and all he cares about is me. So he says, that's it, from now on I'm gonna kick out all the dreamers because the Democrats made me do it. So he wants his wall in return, etc. But the president gets to do executive orders and gets to rescind executive orders. They just have to come up with some explanation instead of, I kind of want to, right?
Exactly.
But they're lazy as usual, and they didn't bother doing their homework and putting together a halfway decent brief. Now, the one trouble that they might have is if they have to explain like why it's a national security interest to do it. Like really, those kids are a national security problem? They might have to write out in their papers, yes, these kids are dangerous. And then that's politically damaging because that's preposterous. And one last thing, lots of different articles about this. One of the ones I read was from the New York Times. And great information in there, good journalism overall, but it drives me crazy when they say things that are not true just to have false equivalency. They say there's broad bipartisan consensus to protect the Dreamers. No, there isn't. If there was, they would protect the Dreamers. They could pass the legislation tomorrow if they actually agreed. They're not passing it because the Republicans will not propose it because they don't want it. So when you're trying to go 50-50, you're doing great damage to the truth there. So report the actual reality. The Republicans will not propose the bill because Donald Trump has told them not to. Hence, they are 100% at fault and they do not agree to protecting the Dreamers. That's the reality, and if you're a journalist, please do your job and report it as such. You just watched the video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join.